In the year 2000, the state of Illinois launched a pilot project to gradually remove a small dam from Brewster Creek at YWCA Camp 2 Endowee. What at first seemed like a simple engineering project became a major undertaking. The method and consequences of removing the dam quickly became a pilot project for dam removal throughout the state of Illinois.
The pilot aspect of this project was what happens if you do the dam removal slowly. One of the concerns that Illinois EPA has about dam removal is that if you do the removal all at once, the sediment that has built up over the years then washes downstream in one slug, and that can cause problems with water quality rather than improving water quality, which is the goal. Well, I walked by the study area today and was very interested to see what has happened since the dam removal, and watching what was one type of aquatic ecosystem, a lake, turning back into a meandering stream.
To me, it was a good move. Of all the choices, it was a good move for the board to make that decision, even though it was hard. The natural state is very beautiful.
The camp has provided outdoor recreation and education for children since 1927. Today, the camp serves over 5,000 children through overnight and day programs. One of the major features has been canoeing on Willow Lake. The lake was created in 1929 when an earthen dam was built across the creek. Over the years, Willow Lake has periodically filled with sediment, causing a problem for canoeists and requiring dredging.
For several years, we knew that the kids only had a narrow space to canoe in. And you could only go through one channel to canoe, and you'd have to turn around and get out, and it was pretty comical. Many kids lost tennis shoes in the bottom of the lake.
In investigating the cost of again dredging their canoeing lake, the YWCA found that the dam was in an advanced state of disrepair.
And what we found out was that the DNR, who regulates the dam safety program for the state of Illinois, they determined that this dam, although not very large in terms of its size, being that it's only 8.5 feet high and creates a 4-acre lake, they determined that it was a Class 1 small dam. And a Class 1 dam means that it has a high hazard factor, and that if it failed, it could endanger someone's life, either downstream or could damage property, infrastructure. This is particularly the case because immediately downstream of the YWCA dam, there are 2 residences. One of them is located very close to the creek, as well as the fact that Route 25 is immediately downstream. So they really were concerned that if something were to happen and the dam was not repaired or rehabilitated in some way, that there could be some potential loss of life.
The feasibility study produced 5 alternatives. 4 viable alternatives included rehabilitating the dam to maintain the lake at its existing or current level, building a smaller dam that would have a lower hazard classification, removing the dam completely, or removing the YWCA dam and 2 smaller downstream dams, thereby restoring a larger stretch of Brewster Creek.
The recommendation that we had to the YWCA was for them to pursue alternative number 5, which is removal of the dam on the YWCA property as well as the 2 small dams downstream, followed by full restoration of the stream channel between the dams and upstream of the YWCA. The reason why that's important is we felt that removing all 3 barriers would provide adequate fish passage upstream as well as restore the transport of nutrients and sediment downstream, which is a vital function that the stream plays in the watershed.
We were told that we needed to remove, repair, or replace the dam. We had no money. We are the nonprofit to the truest sense. And this camp serves children who are from all economic levels. We have many children that come here on scholarship. We're not for profit. So we had no endowment. The research began. There was no state or federal monies available to repair or replace the dam. There were monies, federal and state monies available to restore the area to its natural habitat. When I first came here, the camp was in a $60,000 deficit. So there was no choice. In reality, we went for the grants and we're lucky to work with the county.
The YWCA made the decision to remove the dam and restore Brewster Creek. Grant money was available for projects which could significantly improve the health of a stream or river. The YWCA also would therefore be alleviated of the annual cost of dam inspection and maintenance, as well as dredging of the lake. The multi-stakeholder project was begun, and the YWCA began to face the reality of significant programming changes.
We're very grateful that the engineers in the design of the project put a canoeing area in, designed it in. This allowed us to get permits already. It's already been approved by the EPA. It was great. We are looking for funds to develop this. This benefits our camp in many ways. We're never going to stop serving the population we serve. This camp will literally be shut down before that happens. We believe in giving all kids a chance.
The wooded 27 acres of Camp Tuendowee is part of the Fox River Watershed, a growing region within the Chicago metropolitan area. According to forecasts by the Northeastern Illinois Planning Commission, the Fox Valley is expected to grow by 55% by the year 2030.
Watershed is essentially like a large bowl. I mean, when any water drops into the landscape within that bowl, which we call a watershed, it flows into the stream. So if it lands on the lip of that bowl, it's going to flow into the stream. So if you can imagine it like that, you can begin to see how what happens on the land affects the stream. So for example, as a watershed becomes urbanized, that's going to affect the stream quality. So in the Fox River Valley, population will increase 50% by the year 2020. So that's going to mean more stress on these river systems.
Dam removal can be a really important tool for restoring impaired waters, and as you know, Illinois EPA had listed the Fox River and other streams in the watershed on its list of impaired waters in 2002. So understanding more about how this tool can be used is really important. We want to improve the health of the Fox River and its entire watershed. We use this water for drinking, we use it for swimming, we use it for catching fish in. All these uses need to be protected, so we need to understand more about what we can do to restore these uses.
There is not one certain circumstance that says the river has become too unhealthy. Rather, it's a gradual process of one problem compounded with another problem, compounded with another problem, until ultimately you have an unhealthy river.
In 2002, there were two overriding factors that caused the Fox River to be classified as impaired by the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency: the rapid population growth in the area and subsequent urban development, and the number of dams on the river. In other words, population growth and development plus dams has introduced more stressors than the river is able to handle and remain healthy. The effects of population growth are to cause increases in impervious surfaces such as parking lots, erosion, sediment, polluted runoff, nutrients, and floodwaters. Dams change a river's essential nature, strongly affecting animals and plants living in the river as well as water quality.
And effectively what these dams do is they are creating a series of lakes followed by stretches of river, and lakes and stretches of river. And in fact, almost 50% of the Fox River is now impounded by Fox River dams. And what that does is, in a sense, create lake-like ecosystems in what is a river ecosystem. The dams will fragment the river, they alter the flow of the river and its continuity.
A river is more than the sum of its parts. The riverbed and banks, the water in the riverbed, and all the animal and plant life in the water and adjacent riparian areas. All of this makes up the river. An essential character and function of a river is to flow freely, carrying nutrients, organic matter, and other materials from one part of the landscape to another. Left to its own devices, free-flowing rivers can also clean up our pollution.
Streams are very adept at cleaning the water in their natural condition. As the water flows over the riffles and through the substrates, the sand and rocks and cobbles that make up the riffle, it actually helps to trap pollutants and particles and help filter them out.
A natural, free-flowing stream has physical, chemical, and biological properties that help clean water. The mussels, bacteria, and other organisms that thrive in the pools and riffles of a natural, free-flowing stream actually help clean the water by breaking down nutrients and other materials that are then used by the plants and animals in the stream's ecosystem. This process relies on the variability of the physical properties of the stream and the water flowing through it. A natural stream alternates between deeper, slow-moving pools and shallow, swift-flowing riffles as it makes its way through the landscape.
Sampled Brewster Creek along its whole length, found a lot of species there, which indicated the stream was in pretty good condition. It actually rated a B, which is above average, and we also sampled a couple sites upstream of the dam, and they didn't fare so well. They rated a D. Now that was due in part to some habitat and water quality problems upstream, but it's also due to the fact that the upstream areas of Brewster Creek are no longer connected to the Fox River, and that's really important for long-term health.
When the YWCA made the decision to remove the dam at Camp Tuendawee, the question was, how? An initial design was proposed that was highly engineered and very expensive. Costing over $1.2 million, it exceeded the project budget. The Illinois Environmental Protection Agency was consulted to find an alternative solution.
The final solution which was developed, the second solution, is a very naturalized option whereby the construction part is very minimal. We have 5 different phases, practically 5 different days where the construction crews are on camp, so it's very minimally invasive to the camp environment. The final product is going to be a very dynamic system where it's a natural channel, it will evolve over time. This new naturalized approach is expected to cost somewhere in the range of $300,000 to $400,000 design to construction, not including the monitoring components. Altogether, it may cost somewhere around between $500,000 and $700,000.
Traditionally, civil engineers particularly have a very rigid set of projects that they work within. We build roads, we build bridges, we work on buildings, we do those sorts of infrastructure improvements. This project is different in that instead of the hardscape, instead of the do it once and forget about it for 20 years, this is a project where we've had to be involved in from beginning to end, and we don't know what's going to happen exactly. That's not a very good comfort zone for engineers in general.
Over the course of a year, the dam at Camp Tuendawee was gradually removed by cutting a series of 5 notches out of the dam, and the site allowed to respond in its own way after each notch.
We've had the opportunity to adjust exactly how we were going to go about this as we went about it. The very first notch we cut uniformly all the way across the top, which left the channel about 30 feet wide also. We wanted to start the process of forming what we would call a low flow or pilot channel. So we changed how notches were cut, and we start each notch with a removal that would only be about 4 feet wide and 1 foot to 18 inches deep. What that does is that starts to train the water at lower energy elevations into a particular area. We let that then operate for a while, and what that does is that allows that upstream sediment pool to further dry out. The water table goes down, the mass of what was very soupy soil starts to come together into a more solid mass. We give time for roots of plants to form, which help hold that mass together. And all in all, I think we can credit that with minimizing the mass movement of sediment downstream that would be seen as a very negative outcome of the dam removal.
We want to have information that we can use to apply to similar situations across the state and the nation. There are hundreds and thousands of low-head dams along the same line and that are deteriorating, and decisions need to be made about how to deal with them. The information that we garner from this project will help us make good decisions for those types of situations in the state, and our colleagues in other states can use it as well. So we are looking at the information that is being collected, looking at the habitat and biological monitoring that has been done before, and the water quality monitoring that was done before and during and after the project, so that we can document the value of this approach to achieving the goal of improving water quality through dam removal in a way that will allow the ecosystem to restore itself slowly.
On this project, we're monitoring for sediment, so we make sure we don't harm downstream areas. We're monitoring for oxygen to make sure the dissolved oxygen in the water, so we can make sure we don't harm the downstream fishery. And also for flow, so we know how much water is moving through the cut in the dam at any one time, so that we can vary the rate that we cut the dam out, so we don't harm downstream landowners.
Additionally, biologists from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources and the Chicago Shed Aquarium are monitoring the fish and mussel populations. And the monitoring team is observing the emerging stream channel, how it changes form as the sediment is released and carried downstream.
Well, I'm amazed, because when I saw this last year, when we were out here last sampling, this was a very shallow eutrophic pond. And now I'm standing on some rather moist and squishy ground that has an enormous biodiversity of plants.
The third of 5 notches was cut from the Brewster Creek Dam during the summer of 2003. As the lake drained, expanses of soil were exposed to the sun and greened up quickly. By the end of that summer and early fall, the former lake site was thick with greenery.
When Willow Lake was here, before the notchings took place, there was very, very little aquatic vegetation of any consequence, and it wasn't of very high quality. It was mostly marginal, what we call littoral zone around the edge, and it was pretty monotonous vegetation, mostly cattails, some of which are still here with us today because they're fairly hardy. But the change that's occurred in just these few months is just extraordinary. We now have a very much more diverse plant community than we had before. The open water now has been replaced by photosynthetic greenness.
In February 2004, the 5th and final notch was removed from the dam. The team from the U.S. Geological Survey determined that during the entire dam removal process, sediment movement downstream had not risen above the annual average for other streams in that area. The oxygen concentrations had stayed at healthy levels to maintain aquatic life. By removing the dam slowly, the negative impact on water quality had been minimized.
3 months ago, the last piece of the dam here was removed, and now we can see all the accumulated sediment that was hidden by the lake. This landscape is very different looking, and now we have a miniature Grand Canyon that's been formed because of the down-cutting of the stream. The stream is using its force to find its lowest point, and now it's reached bedrock, and it's flowing where it should, through rock and gravel.
A prescribed burn was conducted in early spring in order to further encourage the establishment of native plants and to reduce the number of non-native invasive species taking hold. The restoration process will include such burns on a periodic basis in order to maintain a healthy native plant community.
In the 1800s, before the Europeans settled this area, this land where I'm standing looked much different. This area would have been dominated by a sedge meadow and fen plant community. And fens and sedge meadows are very special areas dominated by a distinct group of flowers and grasses. And through these flowers and grasses would have flown water, but not in a defined channel, just through little streamlets and rivulets. And most of the water would have been found in the early spring after the heavy rains.
As we look at restoration down the road, we're not looking to try to bring this back to pre-settlement times. We're looking at trying to create a stable environment. That environment will include the creek system and the vegetation that will come up along that, but as well as the areas that were once lake being established in some kind of prairie or wet mesic prairie. The wet mesic prairie being those prairie plants that like their feet a little wetter than the regular prairie plants.
And on this newly exposed soil is going to be planted a suite of native vegetation indicative of wetlands. Things such as prairie cordgrass, swamp aster, and tussock sedge. Taking the dam out was just one part of the puzzle. We have to now complete the next piece, which is the management.
Most camps center their activities on a waterfront where they teach swimming and boating and canoeing and these kinds of activities. And they've lost that within their own property. But we think it's an opportunity to teach stewardship, to teach care of these natural features, to even have the kids monitor what happens out here as the stream and the wetland evolve and mature.
So this project has been a true success in the way that the agencies have come together to make a project of this scale happen. The improvements made and seeing agencies work together, there have been improvements made to the physical landscape of this site and getting it back to its natural state. And there have also been improvements to the way that the YWCA will now be able to offer programs for its kids in showing them truly a natural landscape in Northeast Illinois.
Illinois EPA and the governor are pleased to fund these types of projects that can accomplish water quality improvements, as well as demonstrate through the production of data things that can be used for similar projects in the future. The early indications are that this is a successful project. We're looking forward to continuing to review the data so that we can draw those conclusions firmly in the future.
In spring 2004, with the dam removal completed, Brewster Creek is in the process of re-establishing its channel. The stream banks and floodplain will receive human intervention through management of the native plant community that will take hold. A place where fish have free passage, natural pools, and resting spots. A place where mussels and other aquatic life can thrive in the cool, gravel-bottomed waters. A place that will serve as a living outdoor classroom for generations of children to come.
Every camp has legends. We always had, and when the lake was here, there was the legend of the giant carp, which there was a giant carp, and the kids would every year have a story about it. We're anxious to see what the new legends are.